intro and welcome.
Thank you. Cool. So welcome to the first Lunch and Learn with the Tech Leadership Experiment. And for those of you who don't know what the Tech Leadership Experiment is, it is just a small project where hopefully we can share some great leadership ideas that we can all have good key takeaways from to help implement, help us grow on our leadership journeys. And I think this is a really good one to start off with. Thank you, Petra, where we will be talking about how to influence in complex workplaces, because more and more we're starting to see flatter structures. Organizations are not having as many reporting lines. So quite often you need to establish yourself as a leader, but still be maybe not directly having people reporting into you. So I will, kick this off with, if you haven't already, please do join and follow our LinkedIn page, because that's where a lot of the messages will be posted. A lot of the events will be announced, and also our partner events will also be announced on the page. We do have a second event booked. Thank you, Andrew, who's also on this call, where we will be talking about how to manage your day-to-day workload as well as your leadership workload, especially for those who are new leaders. So if you know anyone who would benefit out of that, please do encourage them to join, and hopefully we'll see you all there too. And also, one of our partners, Aussie Founders Club, have got a face-to-face event happening later this month around making sure you have the right product fit. For those of you in the startup space, that could be quite an interesting session and chance to come in and meet with people who are also working around that and trying to help their seniors understand what's going on in that space too. So without me talking anymore, I'm going to pass it over to Petra so we can all hopefully learn something while we lunch.
Beautiful. Thanks so much for everyone who can join us live and for everyone who watches the recording. We only have about an hour, and I always try to cram in as much as I possibly can. But then I always say, like it is with coaching, it is about asking a different question that creates a different kind of thinking. And even if you may not have all the answers after tonight's or today's session, it should still spark something in you. So maybe when you go for a walk later, or you have a shower tonight, you're like, oh my God, this is what you meant, or this is this little aha moment. So this is what I invite you to be open-minded and rethink, what does my leadership style look like in 2024 and beyond? Because we are going to touch on that in a second, but it's not just about people leadership as such anymore. And this is the beauty, that we are not only able to define our leadership style, but I would say it's also our responsibility to look after our own career. Now, with that said, for those of us who have grown up as the sandwich generation, I always call us the ones who didn't necessarily grow up with technology, you probably remember when that was actually live released. Like it was a big thing, Back to the Future, and everyone thought the hoverboard is the next best thing, would never be possible. And fast forwarding to the day, we live in a very different world. Like when we all started our careers, it was very much in the office, face-to-face, everything kind of analog. And back then, who would have imagined that we could work like we do today? And it just creates some context how quickly things change. And also why, I love leadership programs, I love coaching, but at the same time, traditional leadership programs are very linear. Even business plans and business models are planned with a linear projection. Now, with that said, technology doesn't grow linear, it grows exponential. We've seen it with OpenAI. It wasn't a thing. It was released. It takes over the world. Like this is how quickly it goes. It has a different timeline. And this is why we have to rethink and jump onto the bandwagon earlier before traditional leadership programs can actually catch up with that. Leadership is a lot more than having tough conversations and managing, executing tasks. We are now in this, what I always call the next normal, and next because we're not going backwards anymore. And it's only faster changing than ever before. The last couple of years probably have been the most impactful in our entire career, where we've seen that we face a lot more complexity. Customers have higher expectations when it comes to organizations, to services, to products. The luxury is now a standard level. And that also means that skills are changing to meet those change requirements. We've got high expectations overall also in the workplace, that we've got multiple hats. AI is now part of the workforce. And also when we talk about the future of leadership, it's not just about what does that look like, me leading people, but also how could it look like if an AI or a robot is part of the team, even managing a team. So we have to rethink what could be the case. Does it happen tomorrow? Probably not. But is it completely impossible? No, it's not impossible either. And this is the power and the beauty of people, that we can actually reimagine what the future looks like and have a vision. Anyway, what we are facing is no longer the career ladder that we probably grew up with. We went to uni, worked our way up, got the promotion, got the high-paying senior role, then we retired and we died. Or we maybe had a couple of years in between, but pretty much that was our story. And now we are like this. We're going back and forth and up and down. There's no career ladder as such that we can just climb up. And according to the World Economic Forum, we are seeing quite a different landscape in the next few years. So many jobs are getting replaced. Now, it shouldn't alarm anyone, because on the other hand, so many jobs are also getting created. If you had a look on LinkedIn jobs lately, you will see prompt engineers, AI-supported content writers. These are now roles. They didn't exist 6 months ago, but now they are quite embraced already. I also teach as my paid hobby, I always say that, at a few universities and TAFEs. Last year, everyone was against it. Do not touch ChatGPT. Last week, we got the policy update. We are encouraging OpenAI, and these are our preferred providers. So all of a sudden, even very archaic organizations actually embrace AI. So that's an alarm bell. It should mean that we should actually embrace it. For those who have got kids or the younger generation, we won't have just the one job that we are in right now. In fact, the majority of jobs in 2030, which is only a couple of years really away, won't even exist yet. But again, it doesn't mean that the entire jobs change. It's the tasks doing the jobs. This is what's changing. And at the same time, we've got more fluidity, like the Gen Z generation. And that's a research from about 2 or 3 years ago. So it's not completely up to date, but they are predicting that we will have on average 5 different careers. And in those 5 different careers, 17 different jobs. We're moving a lot more and also stay in roles shorter, simply because we can either be replaced by automation or the skill set is no longer required. So again, when I said before, it's our opportunity to create our own career, but at the same time, also our responsibility, because nobody is as interested in our success as we are. And we don't want to face that kind of dilemma that we are top one day and our skill set is in demand, everyone wants us, they pay us the big bucks, and then it's gone. When I got into recruitment 10 years ago, there was a specific skill set. And back then, only like literally a handful in Australia could do this job. A 21-year-old got it because he had the longest tenure of experience in this skill, got $160,000 as a 21-year-old. And not even 2 years later, the company said, we've automated that now. We don't need this skill. So this person didn't upskill and had to go to the mines, fly in, fly out, because he built this kind of lifestyle for the 160K, but all of a sudden the skill set was no longer relevant. And that was 10 years ago nearly. So it only fast tracks. Again, it's not an alarm or anything like that, but it just makes us alert that what else could we learn? What other experiences could we gain? What other networks can we build in case something happens? And as Asmita already said, this is only the beginning, because what we are seeing now is a lot less hierarchical organizations for a couple of reasons. More complexity means we can't necessarily have 17 different signatures to get something approved. We need to fast forward. But then at the same time, with more competition, there's also more pressure to actually deliver what our product or service is cost efficiently. So having a lot of layers doesn't necessarily make commercial sense for a lot of organizations. And we've also seen a shift now from leadership style to meet those changed organizational setups from this very archaic command and control, I tell you because I want you to tell you leadership style, to a vertical network of teams, meaning probably when we all started our careers, we were very much in our own department. We work with the marketing team, we work with the tech team, we work with the finance team. And now, because work becomes a lot more project-based, we're seeing what it's called the horizontal and loosely connected networks. So meaning we've got a marketer, we've got a finance person, we've got a developer, a data engineer, and so forth. So we've got different skill set as part of a project team. And that means there is not the one person who is more senior and with that has the say against others. So we have to rethink how we actually lead, how we influence, how we make things happen. And then from zooming out kind of picture, we're seeing this shift from very much the mass production where we just fit into one of the wheels and then moved on to the knowledge economy. Now we've got so much access to information that knowledge as such is not the point of differentiation. We're moving into a wisdom economy, meaning how can I extract the data and the information and the knowledge that we've got available and turn it into something that's meaningful. But with that said, ChatGPT or OpenAI is doing a lot of that work now also. So the next iteration is this connection network. How can we build a connection within the team, beyond the team, within the industry, beyond the industry that can actually help us moving forward? So what does it mean? I quickly check also the chat that I can jump in. If there's any questions, Asmita, can you keep an eye out on the chat? Because I know when I talk, there is no stopping me. So I need a hard stop and then I'll stop. So new ways of working requires a different leadership style because the old way clearly doesn't work. And every one of us wants to accomplish something. Otherwise, we wouldn't give our lunchtime and actually learn. So if we want to influence, we actually need to rethink how we do it. Influence is leadership, but leadership doesn't mean just the people management side of things. Like this is how we grew up in this very hierarchical and traditional way of career development, but not people management is not for everyone. And this is probably the allowance or the permission slip for you to rethink what is my leadership style? How do I want to show up and want to be remembered as? When I started in my career, the one and only goal was I want to lead the biggest team there possibly could be. And then I had the first person to report to me, then the first 4 people. And it grew and grew, and I hated every second. I thought initially because I was just really bad and I had not got any experience, this is why I don't like it. And then after 3 years, after 5 years, I did not like it at all. And I saw it as a failure because I thought leadership is leading people. And if you can't do it, where are you progressing? I would say nowadays, because of this different landscape, we've got a lot more opportunities. Some people are really good with getting results in projects. So we can be a project leader and being responsible for results rather than for the people side of things. But we can also be a change leader, which is different to projects. How can I think around the corner and see what 2-3 steps ahead might look like? How could I take people on this journey without being into the trenches onto project management? But then another way how we can lead, and this is my preferred one, is thoughts and ideas. So how can we reimagine what the future might look like? How can we research? How can we find new common ground, package our own IP, and then share it? May it be through a commercial offer, could be keynotes, it could be coaching, it could be online courses, but it could also be as a consulting offer. It could also be as the poster child for an organization. Like if you think of Dominic Price, he's kind of the poster child for Atlassian. He doesn't have people reporting to him. He also doesn't look after projects as such or change, but he very much represents thoughts for the organization. It's all about future of work. And that is connected with Atlassian. So what can we do to create value that is beyond the traditional job description, but also fits with our personality and with our interests? Now, the question is, and always has been, how can I progress in my career? And I would say 2020 was this really turning point where the conversation slightly changed. How can I progress in my career when I'm not in the office, when I don't have the visibility, when I don't have to get to have those water cooler conversations? So, and also, how can I progress when I don't want to lead a team? Because I might realize people leadership is not for me. And this led me into the research of the book and also the framework, The Trusted Authority. And what I found out by interviewing hundreds of people, but also working with hundreds of people, is there is a massive difference between somebody who is really good at what they do and somebody who gets recognized for what they do in a way that builds a lot more authority and relationships. An expert knows a lot. They've got the credentials, the years of experience. You tell them a problem, they solve it, and that's awesome. But if we want to actually stand out and be recognized for the knowledge that we've got and not hope for somebody to tap us on the shoulder, we need to make this transition. And we're talking about how we can actually do that today, because this in the end is what leadership is all about on our terms. This is always for our visual learners. Experts is very distorted knowledge. I know this here. I've got this skill there. I've got this credential here. But where the rubber hits the road is when we can actually make sense out of it, when we connect the dots and create new value for others. So coming back to the question, how can I actually build influence? How can I build my leadership brand? And the short answer is through trust. Because nowadays we see that credibility, so how much we know, is only a currency of knowledge. But since we've got more access to AI and information overall, it's not the one and only deciding factor anymore, but trust is the currency of influence, whether we've got the title or not. And that's a great opportunity for us, that we can actually make things happen because people choose to follow us and they don't have to follow us because we've got the title. And that has a lot more impact on teams anyway, if I'm not forced and I can't actually stand this person and I don't even trust them that they are good enough, but I want to. Okay, let's go into the more practical steps. How do we do it? Now we know what is required, but how do we do it? There are 3 distinct pillars, and I condensed it in a very top level steps that we need to take, because otherwise we're here in May still, and we still haven't quite finished. But to give you an idea what it actually takes, firstly, we need to build capabilities, and that's different to credentials. It's one part, but I'll come back to that, because in the end, we can't expect anyone to trust us if we don't trust our own capability and ability to perform something. So it all starts here, but it doesn't finish there. And most people and professions, they stop here because it's their safety zone, it's their comfort zone. I'm really good at skill, profession, industry, you name it, but putting myself out there, building a network, not quite sure. I'll do another degree. It'll get me somewhere. And unfortunately, that's no longer the case. Capability, one pillar. Building credibility. Why are you qualified to talk about the topic? Another pillar. And the last component is visibility. If we are not seen by the right people, we can't be considered. And we're seeing, I always say, it's not physically seeing, but it could be through social media posts. It could be word out of mouth. What it is, it's top of mind. And this is exactly what a brand is all about. When you say, oh my God, I'm hungry, what do I want? The top of mind brand that is most relevant to your values, to your current state, comes to mind. And this is exactly what you want to be known as. When a project comes up that you are really interested in, or your skill set is perfect for, your name should come up in a conversation. And this is so important nowadays because more and more decisions are happening without us being actually in the room. As Mida probably can vouch for that as a recruiter, you are stalking people. Professional researching, but it's stalking. We are looking these people up. Where are they? Who are they with? Have they posted something? And not being able to see them, you know, we're thinking, what do they have to hide? Probably nothing, but this is how quickly we make a decision about somebody. The good thing is that we are very much in control over the story that we are telling. So let's start with the first component. How can we actually define our capabilities so that we are not restricted to the 20 years of experience, the 2 degrees, the 2 awards, whatever that might be? Nowadays, we have to rethink what value creation actually looks like. Like only a few years ago, if you think about it, we had to wait. And again, for the older generation amongst us, we had to wait for the next business day to call somebody and make a reservation. Nowadays, if we can't jump in at 11 o'clock at night and make a reservation for tomorrow, we're already disappointed and off to the next. And the same happens with skill set. Simply saying, I've got 20 years experience and a degree. It's like, okay. And what should I do with that? Plus, you can still be the best at what you do. But how often have we actually gotten the tap on the shoulder for getting recognized for it? And although this is now more relevant than ever before, simply because we also live in those hybrid environments, it actually is nothing new. Has anyone come across Harvey Coleman and his research on the success factors? No. When I came across that for the first time, I was flabbergasted because I thought, okay, the three components are probably quite equal. Anyway, what he found out is that 10% of your success is contributed to your performance, meaning how good you are. That's 10%, that's it. That's not much in the grand scheme of things. 30% comes down to the perception, and this is where we talk about brand. And then a whopping 60% comes down to your visibility, meaning, are you visible? Are you in people's mind when an opportunity comes up? And if we don't have this opportunity to constantly have those water cooler conversations or walk around or present in a meeting, we're probably gonna miss out on things. So what we need to do in the first step, we need to clarify, what does my unique value proposition actually looks like beyond my hard skill set? This is where we start. So I've got the credentials up here as a first step because it is usually the easiest way to get started. You would say, I've got a bachelor in telecommunications, but then you take it a step further. What did I learn there? Attention to detail, reverse engineering, finding a problem, being able to make the complex simple. Those kind of skills, these are transferable skills into other industries or professions. But then again, we want to take it a step further. We can't necessarily compete with what we do because there's so much out there. But the way how we do it, this is very much unique to us. And this is where our characteristics, our personality comes in. And people are responding to different personalities in a different way. You know, Asmita and I can say exactly the same thing. And you would say, Petra, I can't stand your accent. I don't want to listen to you. But Asmita says the same thing. And you would be like in awe, and vice versa. There's nothing right or wrong, but being able to use our personality to attract the right people and put ourselves into those right environments, that makes all the difference. But we've got a third step, and this is the most important one for our decision maker. So based on your professional background, the experience, education, and expertise, plus your personality, what kind of outcomes can you perform? When I say I've got 20 years experience in marketing and a degree, okay, right, whatever that means. But when I say my specialization is working with early stage startups and help them to build a go-to-market strategy that they're profitable within 6 months, and I've got this track record, now this shows me that you're a go-getter, you're very hands-on because early stage, like how specific can we be with the results that we can achieve? Because that creates a lot more confidence also in yourself about your capabilities. And people who don't necessarily have your technical background and education, they understand that. But when I throw all the technical jargon at you and you've got no idea because you've never studied or been exposed to that kind of environment, you think, I don't know what you're talking about, and probably don't care either. So what I always put in there is this visual, because every skill that we learn throughout the years, every role that we have, every experience that we have is valuable by itself, like a train station. But when you think about train stations where the rubber hits the road, where really a lot of value is created, where they all come together and there's the station that we can then change to the next line. And this is what you want to think about your own background. Maybe you've got quite a diverse history with the jobs and industries and professions you've had. How can you find the connecting dots that actually make sense of that? What are the patterns from the different industries or professions that we've been in? Maybe it is super fast paced, so you are on top of things. Maybe it is heavily regulated. You know how to navigate through red tape. Maybe it is highly complex, like finance. You know how to make the complex simple to understand. Like, what are the commonalities and how can we communicate it in a way that makes sense to others? Okay, quickly checking the time. We are good to go. We've got about 10-15 minutes, and then I want to open up the forum. So if you've got any questions, if you write down your notes, this is your time. We definitely have time for a Q&A. First step, capability. What can I do based on my background with my characteristics, the results that I've achieved so far? What do I want to be known for? But now it comes to actually being able to communicate it. So we want to go from just a transaction, I've got this experience, I've got this background, I've got this certification, to what does it mean? And maybe you've had this kind of experience before, that you went to a networking event and somebody introduced themselves and told you what they are doing. And you're like, whatever, I have got no idea. It's so foreign. You throw all the jargon at me. I feel silly, so I don't like you. This is, again, how quickly we are making decisions. So we don't want to be the best and it's all about us. We want to find a commonality to make it relevant what we can do for our decision maker. And especially since we're the tech experiment, a lot of us are in the digital tech space. Our decision makers, we're usually dealing with commercial decision makers who don't necessarily have the background. So instead of focusing on what I have and know, how can I make it easy for others to understand? So also, one of those leadership skills especially is not being hands-on and doing the doing, but it's about being able to meet people where they are at, depending on their level of seniority, depending on their background. How can I empathize with them? How can I speak their language? How can I become an economy of one? And I want to demonstrate that with a few examples because it always makes it so much easier to understand what I actually mean with this translation. Those three random people, we've got Jamie Oliver, Brené Brown, Steve Jobs. What do they have in common? Anything? They are famous. We probably know them or have heard of them in some shape or form. They all have O's in the surname. Good pickup. Rich as heck, around the same age, risk takers. Yep, they're all correct. They're all correct. But what they have done, which is why they are famous and rich and popular, is they have become the translator of their background in a way that resonates with us. And I always say, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And it literally applies to every industry, to every profession, to everyone who is famous. Jamie Oliver, his background, professional background, is a gourmet chef. He used to be a Michelin star chef. But if you think about it, also when you're a foodie, and Melbourne is clearly the foodie place to be, how many Michelin star chefs do you know by name? I can't think of one, even though I like to go out, but it's not something that I usually associate with anything. Like, it's nice to go there and so forth. But Jamie Oliver has taken this next step. He's connected his professional background with a personal value, and this is family. So he's connected two worlds that already existed in different shapes and forms, gourmet cuisine and family cooking, and connected them into one. So everything, how he portrays himself, his brand, is exactly saying that without him having to say things. He always wears his checkered shirts. He cooks with his fingers because this is what we do at home. He cleans his fingers in his checkered shirt because this is, again, what we do at home. So he lives and breathes this kind of positioning. He doesn't have to say it. Different example, Brené Brown. She is known for shame and vulnerability. And I think her TED Talk is the second or third highest watched TED Talk ever. Like, quite famous. Anyway, she started as an academic. And she was a very renowned researcher already on all things shame and vulnerability. She's a psychologist by trade. And again, she could have left it there and working on her academic career. But what she has done is she has translated her academic insights from the research into business knowledge and into business language. So business leaders all over the world use her insights to apply that on their leadership style. But if you would only read her thesis and her research paper, have you ever read an academic paper, you can't understand a thing because everything is so methodological. That's a hard word to say. Very academically laid out. That's an easier word to say. And then the last example, Robert Cialdini. He's the only one, even though influence, he's known as the godfather of influence, has been around since we are alive. It has always been a case. But he was the first one who distilled that there are only 6 laws of influence. With that said, he's introduced the 7th law last year, thanks to technology. But that's it. And he's taken his research, again, he's a psychologist by trade, into the field and has actually conducted research into the real world. So he knocked on some doors and researched, what does it take for you to buy the cookie, to say yes to my offer, to get rejected and then counteract. So how can we influence to get what I want to give you or what I want to offer you? So he's known for those things. He's translated his research insights into a book. Initially, and get this, marketers ruin everything, initially to protect the consumers, because once you know what tricks you, you can counteract it. Now, with that said, all the marketers are now using it for marketing purposes, how we can influence people. Very interesting. But again, what they are doing, and this is what I want you to start thinking about, is how can I connect my 2 worlds? And those 2 worlds could be anything from your background or your experience and education into a different industry. So you may come from an agile background and now move into healthcare. Healthcare may have never, or the company may have never heard of agile. You could bring that expertise into this space, and you're already connecting 2 existing frameworks, industries, and bring that together. It could also be personal values, like Jamie Oliver does. One of my clients is a financial planner. Sorry to say it, but I think it's boring. And also the perception that we have about financial planners, like, ugh. He's the opposite. Bright pink, he's dancing on TikToks. Yeah, he owns it. He attracts a certain audience. Does he do anything different in terms of financial planning? No, hopefully not. Everyone does the same thing, but how he explains it, how he portrays himself, how he communicates 2 different worlds. So think of your own experience. What kind of 2 worlds could you connect that makes sense to your decision maker? This is an important part. Because if I'm a vegan and a personal trainer and I specialize in vegan personal training or bodylifting or whatever it might be, that's a value add. If I'm a project manager and a vegan, no value add at all. So we need to think a little bit critically about that. But this is exactly the difference between being really good at something and making sense and making a dent because of your unique point of view to somebody who is just simply good, but not necessarily known for that. So when you think of your own positioning, how you want to be perceived as, and this is how you want to communicate to others, what is it that you want to be known for? What do you want to be the go-to person for? When a project comes up, what kind of project would that be that you say, hands up, this is me? So this is our first step. And since we are in a digital tech space, one of the most common questions are around the communication. But how do I actually now apply that? How do I bring that to life? There are a few principles that we want to consider. My favorite one is speaking in 3s. 3s are easy for us to remember. It's also easy to categorize things. So when we say we want to be known for helping companies having no architecture to having the most cutting edge architecture within 6 months, right? How am I doing this? Well, the first 2 months is all about that. The next 2 months is all about this. And the last 2 months is all about that. So simply being able how you actually do what you do, or what the next 90 days could look like, or having a previous experience that you reference. Because the more transparent you can make your knowledge with those frameworks, with the steps included, with examples supported, the more you stand out already. So rather than saying, yeah, I've worked in this company for 3 years and I had this role for 2 years, it doesn't matter. Like 20 years experience doesn't mean you're any good at something, but having those results and then being able to back up the results, how we actually got them, This makes all the difference. Also, technical jargon. I know we try to sound really smart and how much we know, but if people are not coming from the background, if we're not talking to a peer, it can be off-putting, unfortunately, because when we have to think a lot, what does that mean? I've never heard that. I need to Google that. I need to ChatGPT it nowadays. It makes us quite uncomfortable. And we think, I'm silly. And I don't like to feel like that, so I don't like you. So we don't want to be put into that category, trying to be smart. And using metaphors, similes, analogies is exactly how we can actually become the translator. So rather than saying, well, this device is 327 grams, like, oh, I don't know, is it heavy? Is it light? But if you would say it's like a chubby hamster, that's kind of weight. Everyone's got an image of what a chubby hamster would look like. Plus, it's an image, so it also evokes emotions. And emotions is what we actually makes us remember things or people or facts or figures. So what kind of language can you use, your branded language, that makes you unique? Maybe you've come from an engineering background and also from, or a data and an economist background. How can we become a data economist, creating those two worlds and created branded language around it? So what can we do to stand out by using already what we have? We're not having smoke and mirrors around it. We still focus on what we already have and can support with claims and stories, but then creating our economy of one with branded language and with a unique positioning. Okay, the last point, and then I hand it over for the Q&A, is, as I said before, we've now moved into, from the knowledge economy and wisdom economy to the connection and relationship economy. And this is where probably the biggest mistake happens with very smart people. They are focusing here. They build their competencies. They get smarter. They get more credentials. They go back to uni, get another degree. But again, nobody knows of them. The transition we want to make is we want to have high competence because we're not pretending anything, but at the same time, we are also able to communicate it. We are visible for our knowledge. And in the end, this is probably why we're here. If we want to be known by 3 people and influence only them, we couldn't be bothered showing up. But we probably want to make a bigger impact and have more influence over others. And how can we do it? Exactly by what we do right now. Because networking equals working. I always hear from people, I'm so busy, I can't do anything. I'm like, no, it's actually part of your job, especially when you become more senior. Your job is to build a network of peers, of industry leaders, of future talents, of suppliers, of customers. If you don't build your own little funnel for different skills and peers, even to ask, you're going to be alone very quickly, and you're going to get stuck with not having the answer because you can't ask anyone either very, very quickly. How do we do it? Again, I want to be as practical as we possibly can be. So I divided into 2 kind of categories. If we are in an organization and or industry, we obviously want to start there. Not just the team, simply because we're now working in the horizontal and loosely connected networks. We also build relationships with connected teams and departments, because if we have to ask them for a favor or want to ask them for a question or have to prioritize something for our advantage, they need to be on our side. But then at the same time, we also want to make connections with leaders and from other departments. A very practical example that I've always done, and I still advise all of my clients to do, is running lunch and learn sessions beyond your job description, like Asmita is doing in her own time on top of what she's doing. Because what you do is you step up also when it's a virtual stage and you're curating knowledge, you're curating networks, you are building relationships. And when people are having conversations, how do you know, why are you here? How do you know Asmita? Everyone thinks of Asmita as top of mind. And this is exactly what we can achieve also with our own organization. When I was just interested in personal branding and had no idea how to actually do it, I simply looked on LinkedIn, who has experience with personal branding, put in the keywords, asked them to come when I was still in a corporate role, to come to speak to my team. And then the team was raving about it. So I got bigger and invited the entire organization. And guess what? In a second, you can send out an invite and organize something beyond your role, you are getting in front of leaders and executives and boards simply by showing up, by landing in their inbox, by other people talking about the event. So this is one way how we can actually build a network passively and through others. But then on the other hand, we don't want to get stuck there, because something can happen in the organization. We can get a bad boss. Industry is no longer existing, whatever it might be. So we also want to build an external network. Attending sessions like that, very recommended. Check out who is here and then connect with them on LinkedIn straight away. And share one takeout from today's training. What did you learn? What are you doing? Hold yourself accountable. That's a perfect opportunity from not knowing somebody to actually becoming buddies, because we have got common ground. We both attended the masterclass, so hold each other accountable. But again, it takes accountability to actually do this first step. And when you say, oh yeah, I'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow usually doesn't come, or we forget about it. And the last point that I make, how we can also start building networks other than going to network events, is to showing up and building your own social proof. Social media content creation. LinkedIn is obviously my preferred platform, but it doesn't have to be. It might be that it is TikTok for you, or Instagram, or wherever it might be. Not only do you build your own social proof that you've got some content around your authority position, but you also stand out from, if we have to choose between two candidates, and from somebody I can't hear or see anything, to somebody who's got some track record, who's got some influence over an audience, I would always take them, because there's a lot more social proof and predictability there. But also pitching yourself, especially when you want to get into the more senior roles, pitching yourself to be part of a panel. Not even a full-blown standalone keynote or workshop yourself, but it could simply be a panel of 3 people. And if you do a 1-hour panel discussion, you speak on average 8 to 12 minutes. I ran panels for, and Asmita has attended many of them, and we organized a lot of them together, hundreds of them. And one person, because there's a lot more interaction, then we've got questions. You only speak for a short amount of time, but it gets you over the fear of public speaking. It builds your brand. Your name is out there. That's another opportunity. And as I said at the beginning, I just word vomit and idea vomit on you at the moment. And if you take one thing away to implement it, it makes already all the difference. But at the same time, we also want to build a bit of a roadmap. What else can we do? How else can we build influence? What are more advanced versions once I feel comfortable with being on a panel? How can I now do my own workshop? Maybe in my own team first. And then I move into a meetup group, for example. And of course, lastly, any kind of industry publications. Like if you go onto Hero, Help a Reporter Out, or Source Bottle, those journalists and those publications, they're always looking for contributors. And it could be literally completely varied topics, from do you have a garden and planting herbs? Then we want to hear from you, to actually what is the next best trend about generative AI? Like these kind of black and white topics are out there. Everyone can contribute. Again, you build social proof with that. Okay, you can take a screenshot of that, but in a nutshell, how can we actually go about that? How can we build more influence through visibility? We want to become this connector, the connector of ideas to start with, the connector of people, but also the connector of what I can do for you and what somebody is looking for. I think we are right on time. Asmita, I will hand over to you for any kind of questions that we got in the meantime.
I think there was a question a little early on, actually, from Luca, but I wasn't really sure. Which part of
Lucas, that no, stop that. He's out.
Which part of it was applying to? Okay, easy. Outside of that, there hasn't been too many questions, so hopefully, if anyone has any, please just feel free, unmute yourself, and we'll try and answer them. But while everyone does that, look, thank you so much, Petra, for your time and running us through all of this. There have been a couple of ideas that I've noted down, and I'm quite excited to get implementing on as well. I'll probably pop up a post just summarizing my suggestions, or what my takeaways were later this afternoon. And so if anyone isn't quite confident to do that themselves, even just feel free to like that, and hopefully that will give you some visibility and on the platform on LinkedIn or something. But no, look, thank you so much, and really appreciate your time with us today.
Excellent. Yay. Andrew has a comment. Absolutely. And this is probably the hardest part. It's easier said than done. But actionable tips and resources for specifically talking the language of your audience, because it is quite hard. There's a couple of things that we can consider. Firstly, we can do some desk research. So when we go into groups, what are the common questions? When we get onto Reddit, what kind of questions or words do people use for that particular topic? Also, when you go on Google and put in, say, for example, for me, personal branding, A, B, C, D, I see what people are saying. Usually it is personal branding statement or PDF or whatever that might be. So we see those kind of words already and the connections, the keywords that they're using together. And then another way, if it's super complicated and we just don't know who the audience is, connected to everyday experiences. So you know how you come home after a long day, you are exhausted, you're really hungry, and you just want to put your feet up and chill on the couch. Everyone's got an idea. It's like, oh, yes. And the feeling connected with it, because this is what we want to do. The chubby hamster, everyone's got an idea of what a chubby hamster looks like. You know, it's not the dish, but it's like salt and pepper. It makes all the difference to the dish. This is how we could explain very technical components, especially when I talk to non-technical people. What kind of experiences can I draw upon and turn it into my own language? That was a long answer.
Oh, good. Has anyone got any other questions? Yeah, Andrew, did you want to do a quick talk about the next session that you're going to be hosting for us?
Sure, completely impromptu. Thanks, Petra. I enjoyed that. Yeah, I'll be talking next time about balancing and juggling how you move between both leadership responsibilities and individual contributor responsibilities, because it can get kind of hard when you go through that transition. You've been somebody who's a knowledge expert, you kind of know a lot of things, you're working on day to day, kind of doing the do, and you've now got to do that and also do all of this new leadership management-y stuff. So I'll be talking about how the fact that you shouldn't just split your week 50-50, which, you know, is a really bad thing to do. You should really be thinking more about the impact that those things have on your team and your business and your customers, and how you use that decision of impact to kind of go, if I have limited leadership time, this is the stuff I should be focused on.
Yeah, it's going to be great. So if anybody, I will send the registration link out for this after this. But look, thank you everyone so much for your time. We will be sending out the recording, and hopefully, if there's anything else, please just come back to me, and we will try and get that information out to you as well.
Amazing. Thanks so much for organizing, Asmita. First lunch and learn done. Yay.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. You get the recording and also, of course, the slides for anyone who is interested in. And of course, connect with everyone on LinkedIn.
We will.
There we go, LinkedIn. All right. See you guys. Thanks so much for coming.